What is going on, good people? How the hell are you doing on this fine sunny day? How's your week been? What's been happening? Hope you've all been awesome. It's been a busy one this end since I announced last week. The pre-order of my new book, Loud Medicine, is now available. It's coming out on June the 5th. I can't wait for you to get your hands on this bad boy. The last book was a hard one to follow, so hopefully I've done it justice and I've done you guys proud. June the 5th, Loud Medicine is coming out in hardback. I won't go into it any more than that right now, but you can rest assured that I will be doing some hard promo shortly. And we've been putting in some serious hours over at Underdog HQ for the upcoming Underdog shows as well, man. Over the next few months, we are getting around, baby. We got shows in Exeter, Bideford, Wolverhampton, Plymouth, Cardiff, Swansea, Reading, Cambridge, Leicester, and other places too. As always, if you want to stay up to date with what's happening over at Underdog HQ, then follow me on Instagram at James Kennedy UK, and hopefully we'll see all you gorgeous and awesome people at a show real soon. But we've got a podcast first today. Now, anyone that's been listening to this thing for a while will know that we have a pretty diverse range of guests on this thing, from rock stars to members of parliament to academics and scientists and activists and all sorts of interesting dudes. But today, we've got, for the first time on the show, an actor. A successful actor. A successful actor who also happens to be a badass musician with an incredible new album coming out really soon. An album you definitely will want to wrap your ears and your hearts around as the weather gets better. And I'm super interested to talk to someone who's got experience of an industry that I know a lot about and an industry I know absolutely nothing about. So this is going to be an interesting chat. And before we jump in with both feet, have you subscribed to the podcast? Most of you haven't. Come on, don't be that dude. Yes, I throw these things on YouTube now as well, but it's also available on Apple and Spotify and everywhere else that you get your podcasts. So just give me a click, give me a follow, give me a star, give me a thumb, give me whatever you gotta do. It takes 2 seconds, it doesn't cost you anything, and it really helps keep this thing afloat. So, with that said, let's get down to the order of business. You may know him from Game of Thrones, The Music of Silence, Trading Paint, or Perfect Match, but we're here today to talk about his stunning new album, Eyes Light Up, which I'm absolutely loving, by the way. I'm talking about the annoyingly talented musician and actor, Mr. Toby Sebastian. Toby, thanks so much for joining us, brother. How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, the pleasure's all mine, man. I am loving the new record. You must be so proud of it, man.
I'm so happy to hear that. There aren't many people that have heard it, and yeah, it's been a real kind of labor of love. It's been like, I'd like to say 2 years in total of making it, but really I think it's a lot longer than that because I released an album when I was like 19. And this kind of has been an album that I've been dreaming of making kind of since I started writing songs, really. I mean, I'd say that this album really represents my style of music. More than any other kind of songs or material that I've released, and it's taken a long time to do, and I've worked with some amazing people. But as I said, no one's really heard it. I think there are literally probably 5 people that have heard this album. So yeah, very happy.
Oh man, well, I feel privileged to be one of the 5. I mean, we should say straight out the gate that this bad boy is coming out on April the 4th. So it's right around the corner, available to pre-order right now, but we'll get into all that stuff in a bit. But yeah, no, I loved the record, man. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I don't think it could drop at a more perfect time. I mean, the sun is just starting to come out after what's been a long winter for a lot of people, both literally and figuratively. And this album is chilled, it's soothing, it's mellow, it's positive, it's sunny. And it's got some deep existential stuff in there as well. But the vibe, it's just got a great vibe, man. And I really genuinely enjoyed listening to it. And I know a lot of other people are going to love this record as well.
Well, I hope so. I really am chuffed to hear you talk about it like that. Yeah, I'm so proud of it. I kind of there are moments where as I'm sure you know, being a musician yourself, where you sometimes feel like you're not over a kind of a collection of songs, but you can spend so much time overthinking things. You can go over things. You can re-record things. You can rewrite things, and every single time I've kind of put something out, it's been a very different experience in terms of my ability to let go of things, or sometimes holding on too tight. And in the end with this one, it was just like, let's just get the thing out. I don't want to overthink things. If I wait another 6 months, I'm going to re-record something that at the moment sounds really cool, and I wouldn't change a thing, but I guarantee if I wait another year, I will change a thing. And so it feels very freeing knowing not only that it's coming out, but also there not being kind of like one melody or one second of the record that I regret a decision.
Wow. Okay.
Musically or lyrically. And I haven't experienced that before on that level. So yeah, I'm pumped for people to hear it.
Yeah, well, that's interesting that you say that, because I got regrets on every record. I'm on my 8th record now, and I still listen to things now like I cringe. I'm like, why didn't I just fucking change the bass line?
Really?
I knew it at the time. Why didn't I do it? So that's like amazing to hear that you're at peace with the whole record, man.
Well, maybe talk to me in a year again. We'll see how I'm feeling about it then. No, I'm. Yeah, it's a funny one. I think. A lot of the songs, as I'm sure you've noticed, they're kind of, there are lots of different styles that are on this record, but I think maybe that's why I feel particularly fulfilled by it. Is because it kind of ticks off all the boxes of the types of music that I like listening to.
Yeah, it is a very eclectic record, and there's a lot of different sounds and styles welded together in there that I can hear, but it works perfectly. I can hear a little bit of T-Rex, if I'm not wrong, some of the rhythmic stuff and the backing vocals. But then there's also like slide guitar and some kind of Americana vibes. There's some folk influences there, a bit of soul. I mean, is that reflective of your influences whilst you're making the record, or your influences as a musician generally? Or, obviously, we need to mention you do have an adjacent career as an actor as well. Is some of that musical eclecticism a product of the fact that you do so much traveling with your job and you spend a lot of time in America, I'm assuming? Do you think that influences the sort of styles that you delve into as a writer, or have these influences been in your blood, since day dot?
I guess I'd start with absolutely the music I was kind of brought up on, what kind of that filled the rooms of our family home. I grew up listening to Crowded House and Tracy Chapman and John Martin. There's elements of my playing, whether it be finger picking or sometimes the way I like to try and use my voices. I can hear a very distinct kind of connection between someone like a John Martin and my dad loved rock. He was Bowie, he was the Stones, and my mum particularly loved soul. So you kind of merge those two together, and then outside of that, I've always loved kind of, I'd say, like warm, like sonically warm sounding music. So acoustic stuff. I go back to John Martin or Nick Drake. And I suppose that would be the first thing that springs to mind as to how all those sounds have ended up on that record. But you're also right in the sense that in acting, and actually before acting, when I left school, I think a year or two earlier than I was meant to. So I left at like 17 or so, and I spent 3 years in Nashville, Tennessee, recording with a really, really wonderful producer and writer who was mainly a country writer. And he worked with kind of Faith Hill and Tim McGraw and all these, brilliant country artists. But we weren't making country music. And I think that's the beautiful thing about music. And what I realized then was that, like, this person from this musical background and meeting me at 17, having just grown up on what my parents played or what I then kind of found myself, there could be like a connection, and it could work. And it didn't mean that I had to be writing country music for that album to work. But all those experiences, they've all obviously led to this. So one of the songs, Heaven is the Backseat of a Rental Car, I wrote that several years ago, and I actually wrote it in England with a couple British writers. But now in hindsight, I hadn't actually thought about it until you just asked me that question. That for sure, I can hear it now thinking about it and knowing that where I had been before I wrote that song. I'd just been in LA on and off for a year. Right. I was like, that's so LA, that's so Americana. And I hadn't even put two and two until you just asked me now. So I'm sure I'm going to be finding out a lot more about these songs the more I talk about it.
Yeah, I find that stuff fascinating. Because I have a similar thing, with my music. Like people say, "Oh, you're clearly influenced by this band or that band." I think I've never heard that band before. So
Yeah,
other
yeah,
people
yeah.
hear things in your music that perhaps you don't know. That's the beautiful thing about it. Is like once and I suppose you're at that stage now where the album is actually leaving your nest as such and going out into the world, it becomes other people's songs then, and other people read things into it or hear things into it that you may not have even known about. And I think that's the beautiful
Absolutely.
thing about this art form, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
so personal to everyone.
Of course, yeah, yeah. It's completely personal, and also like people hear different things about songs from songs. A couple of songs on the album that I've played live, and someone said, oh God, that must be really tough for you," or "that person, I didn't realize," or "did that person, I don't know, did that?" I mean, not just on this album, but things like, "Did that person die, or did someone die, or like, was there a big traumatic?" And more often than not, actually, it's not that people are wrong. It's just they've taken it kind of uh, completely, as I've sung it. Whereas I've just as much as I like to write things about real experiences, I also love to write songs imagining a scenario or imagining someone going through something.
Yes. Yeah.
There's an album on the song called Daddy Daddy, and I was actually watching. I can't remember what it was. I was watching an episode of a TV show with my girlfriend. We were living in Islington in London like a couple of years ago. And something had started playing. This episode of this show, I can't remember what it was, but it started playing, and there was like a note. I don't even think it was the key. It was just like I don't know how you describe it. It was like the smallest sound. And it was like, stop the TV. So I kind of ran to the piano, ran to the guitar. And I just out of nowhere started going, singing that line that you've heard, "Daddy, Daddy." I think, and in my mind, it was like, I think I missed the train again. But straight away, my mind was like, it wasn't talking about my dad. Or talking about a father being a bad person. My train of thought to write that song was, I want to write a song about someone longing to be home.
Right.
I want to write a song about someone who maybe has screwed something up or done something wrong, or maybe just like is filled with regret or feels like crap. And they miss home comforts, and they miss their mum and their dad and their families and their close friends. And it was just that I liked the daddy, daddy thing, because I thought that saying daddy, daddy sounded more like a cry for help.
Right.
And I also liked that people could read into multiple things. Of course, I spent 5 minutes on it, then I recorded it, and then I said to my girlfriend, I was like, right, turn the TV on again. And then the next morning I wrote the song in an hour, and we recorded it in 2. And I sent it to my parents, and I said to my dad, I was like, look, just FYI, like, this is not about you. And it's not a bad thing. Also, I haven't actually said anything in the song that makes it sound like I'm talking about a bad father, whether it be mine or someone else's. It's not meant to be about, it's about someone being far away from home, like a call for help. So of course I sent the song, and then like I spoke to them half an hour later. My mum was like, "That song's brilliant." And my dad was like, "Yeah, I really, really love it. But I'd like to think that people won't think that about me." And I'm like, "No, it's not about you." And I've played it at gigs, and there'll always be someone it's a sad song, and then I've had a couple of people who are like slightly teary-eyed, either because of a relationship they've had with their dad, or maybe they're just imagining it. But that's kind of what I love about writing music. It's also escapism. It doesn't have to be deeply personal to the artist.
Well, how does that compare then with acting? I don't want to focus on that side of your career too much, because we're here to talk about the record and the music, but do the two things that you do fulfill different creative holes or creative needs that you have? Because they're very different crafts, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I'm about to contradict something the way I've normally spoken about it. But I would say, yeah, they offer, for me anyway, they offer completely different things. I love them both equally. I love with acting, like playing dress up for the day or for a few weeks, and like escaping myself and being someone completely different to me, and finding kind of realness in that person, or a truth. But then and then at the same time with music, wherever I've gone around the world, even I've gone and done an acting job, having my guitar with me, and whether I was sitting in a hotel room or going to like the local park or whatever, and having a song, having a sing and writing something, that's deeply personal. Even if I'm writing something that's not personal to me, that experience is deeply personal because I'm in control of everything, and it's a wonderful way of like just letting stuff out. So yeah, they both offer completely different things. What I have found though is that I've been writing a TV show for the last couple of years, and I found that in writing that TV show has offered a very similar kind of creative, I don't know what you'd call it, flow as writing music, because I'm in control of it. It's my world.
Yes.
And but obviously with an acting piece, when you come on to someone else's project, it's their baby essentially, and you can be slightly set in your ways as to how you think a character should be, but ultimately it's not yours.
Yes. That makes a lot of sense. And you were a musician, active as a musician, before you became an actor. I'm interested, was becoming a Hollywood actor kind of like your version of the struggling musician getting a coffee shop job? Is that what happened?
No, it was, so what happened? I left school for a music opportunity, for a record deal. And originally I wanted to go to drama school. I didn't want to study music theory or go to college and study music. I wanted to keep on writing songs. I wanted to hone that craft, but I didn't want to go and study it in a kind of a school or a college or whatever, or university. I wanted to go to drama school because that's what a lot of my peers or people that I respected did. And I wanted to keep my songwriting going and be in a band or release music or whatever. And I basically got the music opportunity first. It was I just got very lucky that I was playing a school performance, and one of the pupils, he was a couple of years younger than me. One of the pupils' fathers was a big A&R guy, and so basically, fast forward kind of 3 years or so, I've been on this kind of whirlwind of making this album, and I kind of made it very clear to the people that were helping me, like my manager at the time, and that I wanted to get into do my acting as well, or at least meet a couple of people. And he had helped me meet a couple of people. I'd also gone to a couple of kind of open castings, and kind of one thing kind of led to another. And 100 auditions later, I got my first 5-line role in something, and that kind of then just kind of rolled on for the next 10 years or so. And then it was only until about 2019 that I started releasing music independently.
Right. Independently, as right. So you started with a deal, and then
started with a deal, did the whole major label deal thing. The album actually never came out. It was like many major label kind of stories.
Yep.
A lot of love from kind of every single person went into it, but it just for multiple reasons, which we don't need to go into, it didn't in the end. And so I was kind of left with this album, and I think I got really lucky. I felt incredibly sad when I kind of got dropped. I mean, I didn't in the sense get dropped, but there was like a whole rejigging of the label, and I was kind of basically told that this isn't going to go on. We can't basically have you anymore. And so I was like 20. And luckily, I'd kind of started the seeding kind of a bit of some acting connections over the kind of couple of years prior to that, and or a year prior to that. And I remember calling up this fantastic woman who was my acting agent for a few years, and I said this has happened, and I don't want to stand still. I need to keep moving for my mental health. Can I come to LA? And she was like, of course you can come to LA. So she was like, come to LA and come for pilot season. So I kind of did. And so I went and basically spent all my money over a month that I had, and stayed in a roadway inn on Beverly Boulevard, which kind of ironically was like a really, really crappy kind of roadway inn. And it was opposite Air One, which Air One is it's like Whole Foods on steroids. It's like you go and buy something and it's like 10 times the price of what it should really be.
Right.
And so I basically spent all my money on like, in my mind, I was like, this is just where people go in LA to go and eat food. You know? But basically, I was just very lucky that I've always had, really lovely, supportive, brilliant champions around me, and who, when something hasn't got a plan or you feel a bit wobbly, and you're like, oh my God, well, what am I going to do? I've had the energy from someone. And so I went to LA, and that kind of started this period of a few years. And so by the time in 2019, I had just done a couple films, and it was like, let's just release some music. How have I not released music in years? How is that even a thing? I think it was just like a survival thing. It was like, focus on something next, because that last thing didn't go to plan and it was actually really sad. And so move on and you can be brilliant in something else. But, it was always in the back of my mind. It was like, okay, and the music.
That's fascinating. I didn't realize that. So the record that's coming out in April, then, is that independent or is that with somebody?
That's independent as well.
Wow, bro, that's fucking amazing, man. Because I run my own independent label and now a music publishing house as well. Wow. So I know how much work goes into that, man. So fair play to you, bro.
It's one of those things that's like it's incredibly exciting, but I kind of got to a point where we've been talking to some labels over the last 2 or 3 years, and some of them came to fruition, some of them didn't. Some of the deals weren't right, and they were kind of like not right, not wrong, sorry, in the sense that like amounts or whatever. It was more like just they didn't feel like it didn't. A lot of the places didn't feel like the right place for me, if that makes sense.
Totally.
So in the end, I was like, let's just get the album out. We've been working on this for 2.5 years. It's finished. So let's print some vinyls and let's get cracking. And, let's make some noise. And so I think as soon as we made that decision, it was my girlfriend, but also my producer, Matty Benbrick, brilliant writer, producer who, worked with Paolo Nutini a lot and Dido, and used to drum in Faithless for several years. And, and I think, both those two people were just like, let's just get cracking. Let's go. And I think the moment I made that decision, it was like, okay, we're on. What are we waiting for?
That definitely resonates with me. I've had a lot of major label artists, like chart-topping artists, on the podcast, and we have that exact conversation about the pros and cons between, because a lot of them started out doing their first record independently. They did it kind of the other way around. And now they're doing the major thing. And they all say, man, it was so much better when we were independent. We could make the record. And put it out whilst we're still enjoying it, and we can't wait to play it live. Whereas when you do it through a major, they put you in the pecking order of all the other releases. You could be waiting 1.5 years before it comes out, and then by the time you're touring it, you're fucking bored of it.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, my despite having been signed by a major label, my experience with it is pretty limited. I mean, I hear stories. I you hear success stories. You hear the opposite.
Yeah.
I think they can be absolutely brilliant when they work. If you're an artist and it works and things go to plan, and also it's like anything in life, it's so dependent on who you've got at the label looking after you. I've heard not just stories through people, but also like from friends who got the dream album deal, and it's like a 5-album deal if it went the length, and come record 2, when there's good hype has come, and the first record has been it's like had a good response from kind of journalists and whatever, and the fans. Come record 2, so it's like, oh, we're going to half the funding for your second record or something because your first A&R guy got fired and now there's a new one or something like that.
100%.
That happens so often.
Yeah,
people in the music business are always forever moving and connecting for another company, and so I don't know. I always say, like, when people say to me, like, so does that mean you're going to be independent forever? And I'm like, no, not at all. Not at all. But I've done the major thing before. I'd happily do it again. But it's also just about finding like the right people, right?
100%. Well, it sounds like you've got a pretty solid team of people around you that have got a good value set and have your best interests at heart as well. It seems to be working well so far.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I've got, a handful of people that are wonderful, and I can trust on every level, including creatively. So, I also I've also really enjoyed the last, since 2019, putting singles out, putting an EP out, and seeing the audience grow and seeing more and more people coming to shows. And, it's really exciting because it really feels like you're putting me and the handful of people that have put in tons of energy. It feels really kind of like rootsy. You've started from the bottom and you're putting just time and love and belief. Yep. And when things start to happen, it's like, holy shit, this is really cool. And it's so rewarding as well.
Yeah, and it's amazing that we can do that these days as well. I mean, we are living in a kind of a new golden age, really, for artists, Despite all of the very real problems, with streaming, and artists aren't getting paid any money anymore and venues are closing down. I mean, it's just back in the bad old days when it was just major labels making all the money and had all of the industry in their pocket, distribution, recording, the whole 9 yards. We couldn't make our own music without a record deal. At least these days, as challenging as it is, we're able to still make our music with or without a label, put it out ourselves, and do our thing, So as much as I complain about it, it is an amazing time, to be an artist right now.
Do you feel more excited than fearful, or is there like a kind of an equal balance on like what the music world looks like now, what it may become?
That's a great question. I think it's a mix. I do think that the only constant, really, if you look at anything, is change. Like, we're constantly changing. And I think that adaptation is important. I think those who are able to adapt can see the opportunities and the possibilities in change. Sure. But there's always going to be, the horseshoe makers that fall by the wayside when somebody invents the car, So yeah, I think as long as you're able to adapt, and somebody like yourself, who's obviously multi-talented as well, I think that you probably got that in your tool bag already.
Sure. Yeah, it's a funny one. It's like someone, the amount of times people say to me, Spotify is, it's so awful how little they pay their artists or whatever. It's also, I suppose what I'm saying is like always highlighting just the downsides to it, right? Which there are. Like, I mean, the world kind of knows that there are, but at the same time, I always say to people, I'm like, but, without the likes of a Spotify or an Apple Music or all the others like Deezer and Tidal and, all of the streaming platforms, getting heard in 100 countries would be virtually impossible.
Yes. Yeah.
Unless you had very, very thick pockets of cash. Yep. Like that's where you would have to have a major label. There would be no room really. Like, I mean, you could tour and you could gig locally and make, of course you could do it within England, for example, or you could do it in, for me, I could do it in England and I could just, but it would kind of stop there, unless I was able to afford to go and travel to other places. Yeah. And then even then, unless someone bought the album and spent, because gig tickets are, for a lot of people can't afford to buy a gig ticket and come and buy a merch or a CD or a vinyl. And so then you'd have to be reliant on the fact that not only were people going to buy your ticket for your show, they'd also have to buy a CD as well. Because if they didn't, they'd forget your music. And how would you ever kind of like make a profit on anything? So I think that, these streaming services are brilliant in that sense, in terms of growth.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I slag them off a hell of a lot, but I mean, that I think in the interest of balance, I think, it is, like you say, it's important to highlight, the massive impact that they've had on in empowering artists such as ourselves to keep doing our thing independently. And, I'm glad you mentioned that, dude, because I did not know that this was an independent release. So hats off to you, man.
Yeah, it is. It is an independent release. I think that it comes with a lot of fear in releasing stuff independently, because you think to yourself, oh wow, like this, like first of all, you're funding all of it, and it's not even that it's not like most musicians in the world are funding their music on some level. It's more, when I say that, I more mean like if you don't get the reaction. The fear of if you don't have, like, you don't release it and something doesn't pop, or something doesn't, like, the dial doesn't go up at all.
Yes.
That kind of fear of like, and that's it.
Right.
You know, and that's a valid fear. And it's something that I've spoken to a lot of independent artists about, you know, the weeks or the months or the years of making something, and then you're doing it and you're not a label and you're putting it out. And I have that fear myself. I mean, I firmly believe in my bones that this album will resonate with a lot of people. I think I have to feel that as well.
Yeah.
But of course, there's always that little, you know, voice in the back of your head, like, yeah, but what if?
No, I think it's going to do really well, mate. Honestly, like, straight out of the gates, I loved it. It really set a vibe. And I think, like I said, it's the perfect time for this album to land as well. The sun's coming. It's a great, summery, feel-good, chilled record. It's soothing. It's warm. It's soulful. It's deep.
Good words. I mean, maybe you should do the voiceover with a TV ad.
Oh God! What, in my towny Newportian South Walian accent? What are you? As we come towards the end now, because I've got to keep an eye on the clock here. I don't want to keep you too much longer. We're going to loop it back to talking about the record. I'm glad that we managed to digress into those other areas, because I think it's interesting to get your perspective on that, because people see you as a successful actor as well and think that everything must be easy for you, you know, and have everything handed to you on a plate. But no, to know that you got the same fears and obstacles that all the rest of us independent artists have is a fascinating insight.
Riddled with them.
Such is the blessing and the curse of the artistic spark, I suppose, isn't it?
Sure.
What you mentioned, touring. Are there going to be tour dates? I did look. I haven't seen any announcement yet. Are there some coming?
So there's 2 shows coming up. So I've got the first show I've got a record store signing, which is going to be at Truck Records in Oxford. I'm from Oxford, so it's my hometown. Truck Records is it's a very small little record store, and it's got a great history of fantastic acts doing their first signings in there. And so we've got that on the 4th. That is the actual day of its release. So that'd be fun. The 26th, I'm at the Oxford O2.
Oh, nice.
And so I'll be headlining that, which is always a super fun show. And then the 30th, I'm playing the 100 Club in London, another venue with, you know, mega history. And then there will be a tour in autumn as well.
Oh,
after the summer festivals.
Nice. Are we talking UK? Are you going further afield as well?
It'll be UK and a few more shows in Europe as well.
Fantastic. Right. Well, Matt, I'm going to plug all the links in the show notes and at the end as well when we round up. What about what lies ahead for yourself more broadly? You know, what's happening with the acting? Are there anything in the pipeline there you can talk about?
So I've got a film that I'm going to be shooting in a few weeks' time, which unfortunately I can't talk about. But what I can say is that it's a relatively new thing for me. It's kind of come quite recently, and there's a lot of wonderful people that are involved. You know, as ever with the acting stuff for me, it's like there's a lot of either there's a lot of time in between, or that before you either find the next job, or like lots of auditions and all that jazz. But I am writing the script, which is kind of my main focus outside of music at the moment.
That's awesome.
And we'll be looking for kind of putting a little development team around that.
Is there anything you could tell us about it?
I would just say it's very much about me and the acting part of my life. It's an exaggerated version of me, and it's a bonkers comedy.
How do you find the time, man? I mean, you're juggling a lot of pretty big projects there at the same time, you know? Normally,
the truth is that I juggle it very badly, and I realize that I haven't got back to someone. I will kind of ask, I'd inquire, let's say, like maybe I'm talking to like my manager, I'll inquire about something, and he will answer straight away. And then like 2 weeks later, I'll be like, oh crap, not only did I reach out to him myself, I got an answer in the minute, and I didn't do the thing that the person advised me to do.
Right.
So I basically juggle as best as I can.
Right.
I'm awful at keeping a calendar. It's amazing that no, I'm not that bad. But I juggle as best as I can.
Well, I want to ask you then one final question before I let you run off. It's common with people who do what you do and who juggle so many different disciplines in this kind of very uncertain industry as well. Obviously, people have burnout. They don't look after themselves. They don't make time for self-care. I've been guilty of that myself many a time. Do you make time for self-care and well-being? Is that something you factor into your life, or does it get neglected amongst the carnage of juggling?
No. So I think one big thing, apart from the experience the wonderful experiences that I had when I was signed, quite young and went to America and was very much kind of like on my own little mission. One of the things that I'm really grateful that I kind of got from that, and even before I left school, was routine has always been so important for my mental health.
Right.
Physically, obviously, I like to be fit. I love a party just as much as anyone else. I love to party, but being physically fit on some level and also just exercising for my brain is so important. Otherwise, I would just sink, and I would just I would experience extreme burnout. But kind of the year before I left school, and then the 3 years that I was with the label, in going to London or going to Nashville or going to LA, I always had routine. So even when I didn't need to wake up at like 7:00 in the morning, I naturally have done that.
Right.
And yeah, I'm not always like that now, but I've always had some level of routine. And even if that's meant like, I don't know, waking up early, having a coffee and going for a 20-minute run, I'd say more often it's actually probably more, I do it more for my mental state, right, as opposed to my body, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of like a non-negotiable priority in my life, not just exercising, but like mindfulness and, I don't know, just trying to look after myself.
That's brilliant to hear, man. Yeah, it's brilliant to hear, because not enough people do that, I don't think. Speaking from my own experience as well, it's easy to get caught up in the race, isn't it? So yeah, I think that's
especially in our industry as well.
Yes, so I think for people to look at somebody like yourself, upcoming actors or musicians, to know that that's something that you say as a non-negotiable, I think will be a good example for them to follow. And so I'm glad to hear that, man.
I hope so.
Well, on that note, I'm going to let you go, because I know you've probably got either more of these to do, or you're going to lap up some of the Gibraltar sun. So before I let you go, we got to plug the record. Eyes Light Up is available to pre-order right now at tobysebastian.co.uk on gorgeous orange and black vinyl. It is coming out on April the 4th. Go get it. Go get 2, get 3. Give them to your friends. Lay back and lap up the soothing sounds of this delicious album as the sun starts to fall upon us once more. You can also follow all of the updates and tour announcements and news and everything else to do with Toby's amazing career, our careers, I should say, on Instagram at Toby Sebastian 1, and keep an eye out for those live shows, because you will not want to miss those bad boys. Toby, thank you so much for giving us your time today. It's been a fascinating chat, and I wish you all the best with the record and everything that lies ahead for you, man.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely chatting music.
Anytime, mate. Best wishes, and go enjoy that sunshine. I'll catch you on the flip side. Cheers, Toby.
Cheers, mate.
Take care, bro.
Bye.
Toby Sebastian, let's hear it for him, man. Not only an annoyingly multi-talented bastard with an amazing album coming out really soon, but it seems a super chill, nice guy as well. So what a dude. Now, I know it's my job as a host of a podcast to big everybody up and to say their new album or their new book or their new whatever is amazing, but I genuinely mean it. Eyes Light Up is a banger. Trust me, you need this record. It will be available on April 4th, but it is available to pre-order now. I'll repeat it again, tobysebastian.co.uk. I keep an eye out for those live shows as well, because they're going to be badass, man. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. And I know I don't need to nag you to subscribe, because I know you wonderful, gorgeous, awesome people have been clicking away like the absolute legends you are throughout that conversation and doing a brother a solid. I'll be back shortly with another conversation with another incredible human. In the meantime, come and give me a high five at James Kennedy UK on Instagram, because we're going to be getting busy over there soon with book promo and tour news and new albums and all that good shit. So come and join the fun, man, and I will see you next time. Love you loads. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Au revoir.